What criticisms would you most like to hear from people? So I asked you to think about that when you read the chapter.
You're shooting too high.
Oh, tell me more about that, Sam.
Well, people will be jealous if you shoot too high, especially if you attain it, and or they just want the old Sam or the old whoever, and they don't believe it, and then when they see it, they get jealous and they want to be like you, and yada yada, the whole story.
Yeah. So it sounds like you might have. Do you have like experience with this?
Hang on a minute. A little bit here and
Yep.
there, but yeah, I mean, I think we all do. Anyone that's done something good, you always have, like, whether it be friends or family members or somebody like, oh, I wouldn't do that, things like that, and when I moved down here, oh, you're gonna have to start all over, and it's tough, and well, anything good is tough usually.
Yeah.
I don't get things handed to me.
Yeah. No. Does anybody get things handed to them? Raise your hand if you do. I'm going to put my hand down. Okay. Yeah. No, we don't. We have to work for it. And what I love about what Sam is saying, guys, how many of you can understand what Sam is saying, right? We've had those folks in our lives, right? And a lot of times, those folks are people that actually do love us because they care about us and they don't want to see us get hurt. Maybe at some point in their life, they tried to do something. They tried to go out on their own. They tried to break into an entrepreneurial role and it didn't work out for them. And the reason that they're saying these things to you is not that they don't think you can be successful at it, is that they just want to keep you from getting hurt, right? And in other cases, sometimes that happens. It's just that someone wants to pull you back into their comfort zone because you breaking out of that comfort zone makes them uncomfortable. Has anyone ever experienced that? Right? Okay, what's next? What other criticisms would you like to hear from people?
You're obsessed. You don't stop.
Who is that? Oh, Karen Wilkinson. You want to hear people say to you, you're obsessed. You won't stop. What's important to you about someone saying that to you? What does that mean?
Because I'm not going to stop until I get the results that I intend to get. And they should hope that if I'm representing them in either any way, buyer, seller, any business decision, relationship, that I'm obsessed and I won't stop until I get results.
I love that because you know what? Here's the thing. Do you want in any business, whether it's real estate, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a doctor, whatever service you are providing for someone, do you want someone who's obsessed with that role that's going to do the best job they can do for you? Or do you want someone who's kind of like, take it or leave it? Take it or leave it, right? Right? Think about a doctor. Do you want someone who's obsessed with being a back surgeon or a neurosurgeon? Or do you want someone that's just kind of like, I do my best. It works out sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. You're like, second opinion, please. Right? Now, again, real estate's not a life or death situation. And yet, in many cases, we are dealing with the largest financial transaction that most people will have in their lives. Right? And for them, it may be a life or death thing. So that's awesome. I love that. Okay, you're reaching too high. You're too obsessed. I want to hear one more thing that in 2021, you want to hear this criticism from people. Kim Jones.
This is what I wrote down yesterday. I said, who does she think she is trying to break into this luxury market with only a couple years of experience?
Oh, I love that one. Who does she think she is?
And that little voice has been on my shoulder because I've had those thoughts about myself, right? But what I know is, the realtors who are maybe in that market, the only thing they have on me is a couple more years of experience, and I can do absolutely everything that they can do and probably better.
You know what, Kim Jones? You absolutely can. You rock. I love hearing that. And here's the thing, when you align yourself with the top team in Collier County and the #1 company in the world, if you don't know the answer, guess who does? Someone that you work with that would be willing to jump in and help you no matter what, right?
For sure.
I love that. I love that. Who does she think she is jumping into this arena? This is my arena. I own this town. I own this neighborhood. I own Port Royal. Really? Who owns Port Royal? I do, right? That's the thing. If you want to be in Port Royal and you want all those deals, you do. You can be there. You can be there. So that's awesome. I love that criticism. So we're going to jump into this chapter on criticism. And this is really huge for us in terms of success, right? Because a lot of times I see really, really talented people, no matter what business they're in, whether it's real estate or some other business. I mean, Cher's got a photography business. Zach's got a couple of different businesses. We've got some folks on here who are doing other things outside of real estate. And here's the reality. If we define ourselves by what other people say and think to us, will we ever reach our goals? What's the possibility that we'll reach our goals if we measure ourselves and our actions by what other people tell us we should be doing or criticizing us for what we do? The answer is we may not get there, right? We may not get there. So I want to go on page 129. It says, criticism is defined as the judgment of the merits and the faults of the work or actions of one individual by another. Although criticizing does not necessarily mean to imply fault, the word is often taken to mean prejudice or disapproval, right? But the dictionary fails to include a very important piece of information. When you start taking the right amount of action and therefore creating success, criticism is often not far behind, right? Because what happens is as you begin to move out of the pack, as you begin to start getting noticed, those that either A, are not comfortable with being noticed, or B, they don't want you playing in their space, they are going to start criticizing you for the things that you do and start trying to instill doubt in what it is that you are doing, right? And what happens is many people decide to pull back. Many people decide to pull back. How many of you are afraid of following up with customers and clients in sphere of influence too much because you don't want to upset anybody? How many of you are afraid of that? There are people that are, right? Kind of, sort of. We want to be careful. So here's the thing. What Grant Cardone is saying is that when you are getting criticized, it means you are making waves in some sort of way. Now, again, we all have to have a moral compass, right? How many of you know that a moral compass is important? And you all know that you want to make sure that what you're doing is ethical and that you are not hurting people, right? But for you to build a massive business, you want to be seen everywhere. That goes right into the next chapter, which is omnipresence. It's actually not the next chapter, but it's the chapter after that, around omnipresence and being everywhere all the time. And when you're everywhere all the time, you are going to get criticized for it, right? Because you're willing to do what other people are not willing to do. And so therefore, you're putting yourself in a space of being judged, right? Does anyone get that? That you're putting yourself in a space of being judged when you do that? So here's what I want to hear from you guys. What did you take away? Give me some ahas from this chapter on criticism is a sign of success before we move into the omnipresence chapter. Criticism is a sign of success. Terry.
It was funny because I was getting criticized for working too much and not taking any personal time, things from there. And then when I reached some of my goals, it actually went from criticism to admired. So when he talks about how it goes from being criticized to being admired, I had a neighbor that go, we actually was criticizing you all through this and doing that. And then when you achieved your goals and accomplished what you were doing, we can't help but admire you because when you set your mind to something, you just get it done.
Absolutely. Right. How did that make you feel, Terry?
Oh, it was awesome.
How does that change your outlook on doing what's necessary going forward?
I got to put more effort in to hit the even goals.
You get to put more effort in because you already know it works, right? Yep. You get to put more effort in. What else did you get from this chapter? Thank you for sharing. Who else? Who else will go? You know me, I'll stay so quiet. It'll get so uncomfortable. Come on, I want to hear from somebody else. Zach, thank you.
That success it attracts attention, and the attention that you first receive, like you said, was you need to expect it. So if you're not expecting it, it's the attention that the first form, like you said, is criticism, and then it eventually will turn to admiration. But it's the criticism is them. It's their way of justifying themselves with what they're not doing. It's like David Goggins, like people said, oh, that guy's crazy. That's their easy way to dismiss what he's doing, because they're not doing it, as, oh yeah, well, he's doing that because he's crazy or he's obsessed. But it's their way to make themselves feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you just have to expect it, and if you're not expecting it, it'll hit you wrong, or you'll take it the wrong way and you'll stop. You'll start listening to it. So if you don't expect it, it's almost your way of preparing yourself while you're grinding through it, because a lot of people hear that criticism sometimes and then they'll back off.
They'll back off. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. What Zach is saying is that having an expectation of being criticized. If you're not being criticized, then you're probably not doing enough to get yourself out there to be able to build a massive, massive business, because people are going to criticize you on that. Go ahead, Karen.
I think a perfect example of this has been watching Heather Kane. I have seen some serious haters and some things that she could have stopped, and it fuels her to no end that I don't ever want to wish this upon her. But man, when she gets the haters, she gets so much done. Like, she is like, fine, watch this. And we all benefit on her team. So again, I'm not encouraging anyone to hate on her, but daggone it, she knows what to do with it.
Well, the cool thing is, thank you for sharing that, Karen, because one of the things Grant Cardone says is you need your haters, right? You need people that are going to question what you're doing. I had this happen to me yesterday. I obviously, in my business, I try to get into contact with as many people as I can. And I had like 2,000 emails that went out yesterday, and I had 3 people send me really hateful messages about taking them off of my email list. But guess what? I had 1,997 people that didn't, right? I had one that, and I wanted to kind of back off. I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I should back off. But the reality is that I had 3 people opt out and not be happy about something that 1,997 people were totally fine with, right? So that's kind of the flip side of that. That's the flip side of that you have to kind of remember. All right, so we're going to move past this and we're going to go to the omnipresence chapter. And I want to talk about omnipresence for a minute. How many of you had a chance to read this chapter or either listen to it? Okay, what did it say to you about what you're doing in your business right now that you might need to elevate or change? Or maybe it gave you an understanding that you're doing the right thing. I want to hear from you guys. How did you internalize this to your own business? Right?
Be in front of people more often, let people know who you are and what you are.
Be in front of people more often, let them know who you are and what you are, Sam. Absolutely. So that when they think about real estate, they think about you.
Correct.
What else? What else did you guys get from this?
Branding works.
Branding works, right? Say that again, Karen. Say more about that.
Branding works. Every B thing that someone sees and sends me, I get B out of control. And people go, seriously, how do you do all that you do? And sometimes it's just perception on social media, you guys. Like, Kim and I have talked about this repeatedly. We go to some great open houses and we save those stories. Be everywhere.
Be everywhere. I love it. I love that. What else? What else did you guys get from it, and how to apply that to your own business? I want to direct you guys to something that Grant says. If you have a book, you can open it up. If you don't, you can go back and listen to it. Okay. So one of the things he said that you want to be so overwhelmingly out there everywhere, not just in email, but everywhere, right? You want to be networking. You want to be out in the public. You want to be talking to people. You want to be on email. You want to be on text message. You want to be on social media. You want to be on all of these different areas. So one of the things that I took away from that is that, am I spending too much time in one particular space where I'm only reaching one set of people and one set of consumers?
Yeah.
And I love, go ahead. Somebody was
Oh,
gonna
no,
say-
I was just
Go
like,
ahead,
yeah, it's sometimes if you have some comfort level and you have success in one field, you sometimes neglect the others, and you're not going to always, maybe that one field, you might run into some a slow time, and you didn't do anything to cultivate the other ones, and then you have nothing.
Right. So on page 151, I love that, Sam. Go to 151. It says, this is what it takes to rocket to omnipresence. People of fame and influence achieve this status because they are compelled to fulfill their purpose by writing books, doing interviews, blogging, writing articles, accepting speaking engagements, saying yes to constantly get attention for themselves, their companies, and their projects, right? So how do we take this back to our business? Many of you are very much out there on social media. Some of you are not on social media, but you have a huge email list and an email campaign. So what is Grant Cardone saying to you about your brand and what you should do? Zach, you had your hand raised. What were you going to say?
It's the same philosophy that Grant's saying, that, you know, I used to get coached with a group called Kinder Reese, and I talked to you about it, where like a farming approach, or like Kim, you know, you attack on the high end. It's like the way that the other group explained it is exactly what Grant says, but the way these guys said, I kind of relate to. They're like, you need to be like the armed forces, where you've got the place you're going to invade, and it's like, you just don't send in the Air Force. He's like, you send in the Air Force, the Army, the Navy. You surround them, you hit them with everything. So everywhere they go, which, you know, from a subdivision standpoint would be, you know, from farming letters to phone calls to open houses to Facebook marketing to Google AdWords to whatever it is, they just start seeing you for whatever that product is. And it's like, okay, that's the expert for it. And you have to remember, people have short-term memory. So when you stop, they forget. You know, a lot of people will do that stuff to get it going, and then they stop a couple pieces of it, thinking, oh, I've got this. Well, the next competitor's coming right behind you, so you got to keep it up. And it's the cool thing in our business, you know, we make a lot of money per transaction, especially if it's higher end. It's keep using that fund. If it's a percentage of an income that you do, say for a farm area, like Kim's talking about, it becomes exponential, because if you say, I take 10% and I use that 10% to market to this subdivision, well, the more you do, the more that 10% grows. So the more you market, the more presence you have. Where people do is, well, I set up with a set plan. Well, that's before they kind of penetrated going in. That makes sense. So it's like, the more you do, the more presence you should have, because you've got more funds to kind of hit it and target it. And that's, you know, for me, it's you got to be patient. That's the key in our business. It's not, you've got agents that have been penetrating markets for a long time, but guess what? They're getting soft. So they're not continuing to do what they probably initially did. They're kind of taking their reputation for granted. So, I mean, it's anybody can break into any market anytime, but you got to just be patient, consistent, have a plan.
I love that. So Zach, what I hear you saying is, and this goes for every single agent, how many of you know the 3 or 4 neighborhoods you want to own? How many of you have them written down? A minimum of 3 or 4. Okay. So my recommendation to all of you is that real estate hasn't changed that much in how you blanket that community to own that community. You decide what 3 or 4 communities you want to own, and you absolutely go after them with a vengeance. And like Zach said, is we live in a world where everyone wants instant gratification. I was actually meeting with an agent yesterday, and you know, one of the things that he said to me is like, I'm super impatient. And I would say that that is the bane of the existence of the real estate agent right now in terms of getting listings. Can you get buyers like that? Yes. But in terms of getting listings, which listings are the king, the foundation of your company, it is a long burn. And what my advice is exactly what Zach is saying. You know those neighborhoods you want to own, and you go after them with everything you've got in your arsenal, and you do it consistently, and you do it all the time, which is farming, postcards, phone calls, door knocking, social media, email lists, everything. If they've got a community Facebook page, you infiltrate that. If they've got a community newspaper, you get into that. If they do community events in that community, you show up and you sponsor it. If you want to own certain areas of this community in terms of you being the realtor of choice, you absolutely want to have omnipresence in that area. And where I see the agents that separate themselves from the pack, it's the agents that have enough patience to consistently work that from every single direction so that they own it. And then like Zach said, is that some of the agents that have been in there in those communities for a really long time, they are getting soft. They're finding that they're getting a lot of referrals, so they're not spending as much money on advertisement. They're not spending as much money on being in front of people. And you have the opportunity to move into that space as the new fresh face and a different message, right? Go ahead, Zach.
No, and with that too, it's, you know, with the fact that the short-term memory, you know, with what people have, you know, it's with the right plan, with, you know, doing the things that no one's willing to do. Like I said, anybody can penetrate in those markets, but it's, you send a message out, you can tell them before you are. It's almost like fake it till you make it. So we, you know, I'll give an example, everybody. So in Lee County, when I used to mainly work up there, you know, we decided, hey, we do a lot of waterfronts. We're not dominating the market. Let's come up with a slogan. And actually, one of the top agents actually stole our slogan because we stopped. But we basically were like, no one knows waterfronts better. So everything we did, we had that same message on there. So you tell them what you know what I mean? I'm telling them that no one knows it better. Well, the more they see that, they're like, oh, okay, I guess no one knows waterfronts better. And then you become that. You just keep sending that same message out. You know, you tell them
Who you are.
the message you want in the marketing and like the same consistent message.
So one of the things that I find is really another message that when we talk to sellers, again, when we're talking to sellers and buyers, it's really identifying who you are. So are you a realtor, or are you an agent a realtor that represents sellers to get them the highest price for their home in the shortest amount of time? That really identifies who you are and gets the listings that you want. Or if your thing is buyers and you really want to focus on buyers, are you focused on finding them a home and creating some branding around that? Okay, we're going to go on here. So the last thing I want to say about this is that we're going to go to the very last chapter that we're going to do tomorrow and probably sit on it for a couple of days, is chapter 22, which is successful or unsuccessful. And that's going to tie up the 10X rule of Grant Cardone. Now, one of the things I did is I actually wanted to see if Grant Cardone practiced what he preached. And so I actually signed up to download some free thing from him. And what I'll tell you is you guys know in this chapter where he said he had someone call him that said that people were following up with him too much. And then he said that was a good thing. And he actually congratulated his team for being aggressive. Oh my gosh, are they aggressive? And they are good. They are good. I even asked one guy yesterday, I'm like, where are you at? He's like, I'm in Miami. I'm like, you should be a realtor because you absolutely have the best scripts I have ever heard in my life. If this guy were to go after to build his business around sellers, he'd be the #1 listing agent in his area. I am not kidding. But they're very aggressive. And when I said, well, I'm not really sure I want to do this right now, they absolutely went straight to this book. And they said, you know what, Becky? basically saying, do you want to live a 10X life or a 1X life? Well, I want to live a 10X life. Then what other choice do you have but to say yes to this? If you're really going to do what you say you want to do, why else would you say anything else but yes? And I said yes. I said yes. I said yes to this. So here's what I know is that this guy, the reason I think that this book is so amazing is because he lives what he's saying. He's built a massive business. And I believe that you should listen to people who have actually done what it is that you want to do. And I'm going to ask you guys, what from this book have you taken and put into your business right now? And if you haven't taken anything, then one of the challenges that I would make for you today is that you take what you've learned and you put it into action, because without putting into action, you waste 30 minutes every morning on this call. Put it into action and then come back and share with the team your results and help edify others and help lift them up by putting those things into action. Okay. Love you guys. Awesome. Read the chapter on or listen to it. I'd rather listen to it because Grant is awesome. He fires me up. But chapter 22 is the real deal, and it's where we're going to end. And then we're going to move into getting into action. I appreciate all of you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. Bye.